and on our way in a little town called Scott, Louisiana. This is January of 2020 now, in a little town of Scott, which is I didn't unmute it. It's my fault. It will come through now, I promise. All of this is my fault, just so you guys know. This is your sound team is on top of it. I'm not. They're trying to make sure the live stream, individuals on live stream can hear everything. And since we're using two sound systems, we had to bring them together. And I did not do my part in making sure they were getting the sound. So they should be now. If not, please let me know, because we want to make sure that they're a part of this. So so we did this in Florida. Of course, as we were fixing the bus, he's giving me a thumbs up. We realized this pandemic was starting to become an issue overseas. We started seeing it on the news. And I was called to go up to Pennsylvania to sing for another evangelistic series in March. And those of you who have a really good memory will remember that March of 2020 was when the hammer came down in the United States. So here we were parked at the Hanover Church in Pennsylvania. 2 weeks into an evangelistic series, our bus was parked outside this church. You know, they had this great setup where they have a full hookup for an RV, power, water, sewer. It's great. But here we were in a bus with a brand new engine and nowhere to go. So we just kind of sat tight. I think we all thought this would just be something that blew over in a couple weeks. The church said, hey, we're going to shut church down for a little while. The Pennsylvania conference asked the churches in the conference to shut down just until everything was sorted out. And after a few weeks, we realized this wasn't going to just be something that was short term. And there came a point in time, I remember the head elder of the church came to our bus. He drove up one day and he handed me keys. And he said, these are keys to the church. We know you're going to be stranded here for a while, and we're going to probably have church closed down for a little period of time. And so just consider this your new 15,000 square foot home. So that's exactly what we did, for the next year. That's where we were parked. Our bus was just sitting outside the Hanover Seventh-day Adventist Church in Hanover, Pennsylvania. Every Sabbath, my wife would get the girls in their Sabbath dresses, and I'd get in a suit, and she'd get in her dress, and we'd go in the church, and we'd go to the Sabbath school class that they would normally attend. And I would lead them in song service, and my wife would do the lesson, and we had a Sabbath school. We were by ourselves, but it felt as normal as it could possibly feel to our kids. Over the next several weeks, my phone pretty much rang off the hook with cancellations of events. We had 160 events booked for the next 12 months. I was scheduled to sing at the General Conference session in Indianapolis. I was scheduled to sing for 5 camp meetings, including Alberta camp meeting in Calgary, Canada. We're looking forward to that. I was scheduled to coordinate the music for the It Is Written evangelistic series that was happening just before the GC. So we had 5 simultaneous evangelistic series happening in Indianapolis called Ignite Indiana, just prior to the General Conference session. See, what happens when the GC comes to a city, it makes a big splash. 80,000 Adventists from all over the world descending on a particular area makes noise. So we take advantage of that in evangelism. We go, hey, while you guys are thinking about Adventists, why don't we introduce you to the God that we serve? And so Pastor John was going to be preaching in the northern part of the city. We had Yves Manier, our evangelism director at the time, in the east part, and we had Eric Flickinger in the west part, and then the south section of the city, we had another evangelist, and then a Spanish evangelistic series going on in the central part of the city. We were blanketing Indianapolis, and I had already been coordinating the music. I was singing for Pastor John's meetings and then rotating between all of them. Of course, It Is Written was also one of those many hundreds of phone calls calling me and saying, we're pulling the plug on Ignite Indiana. It was a very interesting time. I don't know how to quite describe it. I think a lot of us were numb, not sure how to react. So around that time, God in his provision was able to take care of us. We have emergency funds set aside just for times like this, not necessarily a pandemic. No one saw that coming. But we were able to continue to live, and God was able to take care of us. And I got some work even in construction during the year, which was a blessing and helpful. So God pushed us through. It Is Written decided that we had to still do something for evangelism. And so I remember Pastor John said, he called me up and he said, Scott, are you willing to come to the studio in Tennessee and record some music? And I said, yes, I would love to. I have to do something. I'm going stir crazy. And so Pastor John began to put together an online version of that series we were supposed to do in Indianapolis. They called it Hope Awakens. Some of you heard of it. It went nationwide across the United States. So what we did, we purchased Facebook-sponsored ads. And Facebook, you guys know, it's a little creepy. It knows everything about you. So if you decided somewhere along the lines in your Facebook profile to like someone's Bible verse on their wall, Facebook knows. And so when we said we'd like to target people that are showing an interest in spirituality or Christianity, Facebook remembers you hit like on that Bible verse. And so you would get an ad coming up on your feed saying, Hope Awakens, It Is Written evangelistic series, coming soon to a Facebook Live near you, right? So we did this all over the country. And we linked local pastors in with this. And Facebook metrics and social media is just so, it's incredibly powerful in what it can do and how you can harness it for business or for evangelism. And so we had pastors connected locally with the people who were locally responding to these sponsored ads. So we kept track of everything. And Pastor John preached his heart every night. Preached his heart out every night, 21 nights. I came to the studio, I recorded some music, sang my heart out. As the result of those meetings, honestly, it's thrilling to say this, but we have right now, because we're keeping track, we have over 3,600 people baptized as a result. That's a huge number. Praise the Lord. And that's what God does when he says, hey, I know something tragic is going to happen to the world, and it's going to be chaotic for a while, but evangelism still goes on. And so we found a way to do that. Coincidentally, not coincidentally, It Is Written had just moved into their brand new studio and was able to actually do this. If we had just had this happen just a few months earlier, we would not have been able to do this. So God, in his timing, knows what he's doing. And there are people today walking with Jesus as a result of that. So I want to share with you a little video. You're going to see what It Is Written is doing behind the scenes, even during the pandemic. And this is an appeal to you. These are little interest cards with my picture next to Pastor John. If you fill that out, you can either give it to me, and I can send it to It Is Written, or you can send it to them. They'll send you our magazine. We only send it out once or twice a year. You're not going to get that many. But we try to send it out twice a year. You can just follow what we're doing. Just pour through that. It's called Impressions. Very cool stuff happening. It's not just a guy with a New Zealand accent preaching on TV. And you'll see that here in this short little video. I asked them to give this to me. I said, guys, I go to church every Sabbath. I talk about It Is Written. I want you to send me a video that shares a little snippet of what we're doing. And so I think you'll be blessed as you watch this. I get the joy of being their affiliate musician. All that really means is I don't directly work for them. I'm their musician. So when John needs a singer, when they need music, they call me and I contract in with them. And then the rest of the year, I'm here doing concerts for you. So this past month, in March, we were at the Sunnyside Church, some of you know, doing the Great Reset evangelistic series. We've got over 200 people being baptized as a result of that in Portland. So God is on the move. And as you watch this, I think you'll be blessed by seeing what It Is Written is up to these days.
For over 60 years, It Is Written's mission has been to reach as many people as possible with the gospel of Jesus Christ. From TV and radio programming in English, Spanish, and American Sign Language to resources such as our Bible study guides, It Is Written continues to redefine modern evangelism. We've expanded our evangelistic resources to make it easier for you than ever before to share the gospel with others. We've also launched multiple humanitarian projects that have opened hearts to the gospel like never before. It Is Written's Eyes for India gives sight to the blind, and Mission Mongolia provides free medical care to thousands of Mongolians. People who would never have been interested in the gospel are picking up a Bible in their own language and learning about God's incredible love for the very first time. Our humanitarian projects, our television and internet programming, and our evangelistic resources are all designed around one common goal: to see people make lasting decisions for Jesus. We see those decisions being made every year as we conduct evangelistic series all over the United States and in countries such as Zimbabwe, Italy, Australia, Moldova, Peru, Colombia, and Cuba. Join us and get involved today.
A lot of good things happening behind the scenes. And if you are a medical professional and you want to be a part of what we're doing, we're going to Bolivia this year. We need people. We need nurses. We need doctors. We need dentists. Anybody who's willing to lend a hand. We're opening medical clinics. So if you want to do something like that, see me afterwards, please. I can connect you with our evangelism director, Wes Peppers. He will get you signed up, and you can go see people's lives changed for eternity. So this morning, I'm going to share with you just a little glimpse into the heart of my family, our experience, our journey. My wife and I will be celebrating 13 years of marriage this year. Almost that entire 13 years, we have been on the road, living in a 40-foot tour bus. And hopefully by the end of this morning's program, you'll know why. We have two little girls. Our 6-year-old blonde is Emma. Our 4-year-old brunette there is Aubrey. I know we're in trouble. I'm going to start by singing a song that represents, I think, the family dynamic that we have with Jesus. I'm going to talk about that all this morning. I'm going to talk about the parent-child relationship we can have with him. I think if he were sitting right next to you today in the pew, face to face, I don't know what kind of week you've had. I don't know what the month has been like. I can only imagine what your year has been like. But he knows. And being the awesome father that he is, he's got a way of just leaning into us and saying, come, tell me what's going on in your life. Whatever you're going through, I will work you through it. I'll hold you until the pain subsides. I'm excited in the new journey that you're taking because I'm your father and I love you. That's what this song celebrates. I think you'll be blessed by this. It's entitled, Come. Come when your heart is heavy laden, feeling like the joy is fading. Just come. Come, believing everything I've told you. Here are arms that long to hold you. So just come. Come and leave behind the mask you're hiding. Here is someone to confide in. I know what you've done. Come and tell me everything you're hoping. The Father loves a heart that's open. So just come. I didn't die so you could try to save yourself. I know who you are, don't try to be somebody else. Come, believing everything I've told you. Here are arms that long to hold you. Won't you come? Come and come into the joy living. knowing that your sin's forgiven. Oh, just come. Just come. In a lot of ways, the connection that I have with Christ has always been a parent-child connection. Because really, in a lot of ways, during my growing up years, my brother and I, we saw our family dynamic broken more than once. It's true. And that's just the way it goes sometimes. Sometimes you grow up in a nuclear, healthy, Christian, copacetic family. And that's how God designed it. He designed the family unit to be that way because he wants the family unit to be the training ground for how we relate to people later on in life. Because the truth is the dynamic that exists when you're a kid in your home does have an effect on who you become later on in life. We know that's true. Psychologists have said that. It's psychology 101. It's why when you're in the court system, you will see people who have committed a heinous crime. The defense a lot of times will say, look at his childhood. Because that's just a small defense for maybe who he's become later on in life. Somebody who had a bad childhood, sometimes it leads them to have a bad life. Now, I'm a believer in the fact that you can have a bad childhood and you can have a really good life. That's something that happens when God is present. So early on in my life, God took a father role. That's a good thing because God is so good at filling voids. So if you have a dad-shaped void, you have a mom-shaped void, you might have a spouse-shaped void. I don't know who you've lost. You might have lost a child. God finds ways to fill it. And he stitches the pieces of your heart together because he's the fix-it God. He is always the fixer. He's always been the heart fixer. And I realized that early on in my life. I remember having a conversation with God. I was just a kid, probably 12 years old, and I said, God, I want you to give me something better than what I've been seeing. If I'm ever going to get married, please give me a better marriage. Give me a better family. I was begging him as a 12-year-old boy for something better. Sometimes, when you grow up in a healthy home, you tend to build healthy relationships with the people around you. I mean, that's just what's modeled to you. So when you make friends, you build healthy relationships with your friends, and then you get a little older and you meet somebody and you make and build a healthy relationship with your spouse, and then you build a healthy relationship with your kids, and you build a healthy relationship with God. And yet, of course, when you're in a broken home, a lot of times you see people will grow up and they'll build unhealthy relationships with their kids. They'll build an unhealthy relationship with their spouse. It's what was modeled to them. It was their default setting. They'll build an unhealthy relationship with God. You can do that, by the way. And so, knowing that I wanted something different, God hearing my prayer as a child for something different, he began to give that to me. He began to reset my default setting. And it's powerful because God didn't do that just by saying, I'm going to give you an amazing, perfect wife. He did do that. But that's not his answer to what my dynamic was. His answer was to reset my default setting. So how he did that was he began to put people in my life that showed me a different way. I began to experience men in my life who showed me what it was to be a good father. He put couples in my life who showed me what it was like to witness a healthy marriage. He put parents in my life who showed me what it was to have a healthy Christian relationship with their kids, how to be godly parents. And through these people, he reset my default setting. He gave me a new normal. And that's why I'm celebrating 13 years with my wife. It's why my brother is celebrating 20-something years with his wife this year. Because we said that this generation is going to end a multi-generational cycle of broken homes. I'm telling you, multi-generational. Parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, aunts, uncles. It's everywhere in my family. In fact, when Heather and I were going through premarital counseling, we went through a couple of different sessions of premarital counseling just to make sure. I was very frank with her. I said, honey, I love you with all my heart, and you know I do. You come from a home where your parents are still married 30-something years later, 40 years later. I come from a home that's completely the opposite of that. I mean, broken more than once. So I said, statistically, our risk, because of me and my side of this dynamic, our risk for divorce is high. I don't look at that as an option in my mind. I'm different. I want to be different, but I can say that with my words all day long. But I'm telling you right now, just know what you're getting into when you marry me. And she knew, and she was okay with it. And God has blessed in such an amazing way. I'm telling you right now, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, God knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing. He connected us in ways that we never imagined we would be connected. And now we live in a tour bus together. And I'm telling you, you got to get along with your spouse to live in a 40-foot tour bus full time. And 2 kids. It's a blessing, man. We have made some amazing memories together. Now we're raising 2 beautiful girls together. It's an awesome ride. And we're breaking a cycle. And I hope it stays broken forever through the rest of our time on this earth. I want to sing a song that celebrates the fact that we as God's kids, we will never outgrow him. He is still bending over my family and even over me and saying, you're still my kid. And I have brought you through a lot, Scott, since you were a little boy, but you're still my kid. There's much ahead that I'm going to bring you through. There are times you're going to fall flat on your face, and God doesn't come up to us and say, you know, you've been a Christian all your life. Probably shouldn't be making this mistake. This is a little juvenile, buddy. Can you imagine that being God's character? God's character is, you know what? I'm going to pick you up. I'm going to dust you off. Let's try this again. But let's try it my way this time. Because he's that kind of a parent. I've always told my girls, you know, you'll never outgrow me. True story, they won't. I tell my girls all the time, you're daddy's little girls. And especially my 6-year-old, she's always quick to remind me, Dad, I'm a big girl now. I'm not her baby. You're right. You're right, Emma. But you know what? Just a secret between you and me and the people in church. You're always going to be daddy's little girl. And nothing's going to change that, right? Nothing's going to change that. In fact, when they're 40 and finally allowed to date, they'll still be my little girls. God looks at us the same way. You know, some of us are baby Christians. We are learning to walk in our faith for the very first time. And some of you are mature Christians. You've walked with God your entire life. But wherever you are in that spectrum, he loves you. He has patience for you. He's there every step of the way. That's probably why I love this song so much, because I'm in dad mode. Those of you who are parents, as I sing this, I think you will embrace this. You'll get this. Those of you who have grown up in a home that sounds strangely familiar to mine, I want you to take a moment and just dwell on the beautiful relationship you can have with your ultimate daddy in heaven. I was there when you drew the breath of life. And I could hear your voice the first time that you cried. And though you couldn't see me, I was very near. And there is something now that I want you to hear. You will always be a child in my eyes. When you need some love, my arms are open wide, yeah. And even as you're growing old, I hope you'll realize that you will always be a child in my eyes. And I was there the first time that you prayed. And I heard all those promises that you made. But when you fell before me, crying, Father, I have sinned, I picked you up and I held you close again. 'Cause you will always be a child in my eyes. And when you need some love, my arms are open wide. And even as you're growing old, I hope you'll realize that you will always be a child in my eyes. You will always be a child in my eyes. When you need some love, my arms are open wide. Yes, they are. And even as you're growing old, I hope you'll realize you will always be a child in my eyes. Yes, you will always be a child in my eyes. Ooh. In a lot of ways, the moment that my wife and I became parents, it was life-altering. In a major way, it was life-altering. Those of you who are parents, you get it. You know that moment that you have kids. There is not a corner of your life untouched by it, not a corner. It has changed the way that I look at my wife because I've watched her carry 2 kids. I've watched her carry kids twice for 9 months in her belly. That was an amazing experience, seeing them kick and stretch and hurt. All the morning sickness. My wife was one of those people that had morning sickness the entire pregnancy. That poor girl. It was rough. She's a runner, and she kept trying to run through her pregnancy. She ran all the way up into her 26th week. She was jogging every day with me, running on a 5K. She'd cut off the trail for a while and relieve herself of her breakfast and come back and join me and keep running. She was amazing. She's my hero. You know, watching her give birth to babies twice, seeing her go through that, seeing her give of herself, raising those kids. Man, once you're a mom, it is forever. It's forever. I have a newfound respect for her. She's kind of my hero now, just watching her go through all that. I have a new look on myself in life since having kids. I mean, I've often looked up to the heavens and said, Father, is this the kind of patience you have to have with me? Wow. I've often looked at my kids, when I was singing at the Sunnyside meetings, those 21 nights. Whenever I sing for an evangelistic series, I do an average of 2, sometimes 4 a year. My girls, it's quite the change for them, and they have to adjust to it because normally mom and dad are putting them to bed together. We're having worship together. We have a little tradition. Heather will read out of a book for a while the girls color, and I'll help them color. And then sometimes we'll sing Jesus Loves Me to them, and we have to tuck them in every night. It was just our thing. You know how you have a routine with kids. And so when an evangelistic series comes along, then I've got to sing. We have to explain it to them that Daddy's not going to be doing these things for about a month. Because I would leave around 4:30, 5 o'clock. Our tour bus is parked at Gladstone in at the conference office headquarters there in Oregon. And so I'd have to leave around 4:30, 5 o'clock to make it in time to Sunnyside, do all the camera checks, all the makeup, all the stuff you do, and then I'd sing a closing song, and then by the time I was done interacting with the guests that were coming, I wouldn't get home until 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. So this giant window of dinner and bedtime and that whole tradition just kind of goes away for a period of time. So my kids just have to adjust. It's hard. It was harder for them when they were really, really little. Emma would cry when I left, when she was just 2-3 years old, but she's gotten used to it now that she's 6. But one of the things they do is they always say, Dad, when you come home at night, you have to kiss us. And I always tell them, you're sound asleep. You're crashed out so hard, you don't even know when I'm coming home. I mean, I can make all the noise I want. I can turn on the lights. It wouldn't wake them up. So I'm kissing you, and you have no idea whether I am or not. But every morning, they'd ask me, Dad, did you kiss us last night? If you have to ask me, you clearly don't know. But I have to say yes. So I have to kiss him if I'm going to say yes. So every night I'm coming in, and I just look at them in their bunk beds, and I give them their kisses. And when your kids are sleeping, it doesn't matter how crazy they were that day, they're angels. They're angels when they're sleeping. And many times I've just said, God, save my kids. In spite of me, save my kids. I've often looked at them and I've said, God, the love I'm feeling for my children right now as I'm watching them sleep, it is intense. It almost hurts. It almost hurts right here in the chest region. And yet I know, because you've said it in the Bible, that you love me more. You love them more than I love them. I can't wrap my head around that because I love them intensely. But he does. They're his kids that he's loaning to me. So I'm learning things about God's character. I'm learning things about my wife and my own character just by having kids. I'm learning more about the relationship I have with God, my parent-child connection with him, and how I can be a better kid to him and for him. When my girls arrived, Emma especially, boy, oh boy, she was the one that made us parents for the first time, and she decided to come in with a little bit of drama. Friday, October 2, 2015, Heather woke up at 5 in the morning. She was having contractions. We were in Texas. We had just arrived in Texas about 9 months earlier. We arrived in Texas to do a music tour there. I'm scheduled to not only do concerts, but I'm scheduled to sing for the state evangelist. He does 3 or 4 evangelistic series a year throughout the state, Linwood Spangler. And so they've invited me to sing for him when he goes around to the different cities. And so in between his series, I'm doing my own concerts. When he starts an evangelistic series, I'm singing every night for his event. And so our bus, we traveled all over the state, parking our bus at various RV parks all over the place, doing these evangelistic efforts. When we first arrived, 9 months earlier, we really didn't know anybody. And even 9 months later, we hadn't really made a lot of close friends because we were on the move all the time. Then one lady we knew was the lady who was the receptionist at the RV park that we stayed at the most, which is in Keene, in Texas, near the university. She's an 80-year-old lady. She's a sweet Adventist lady. Her son actually owns the park. So she's there in the reception area, and she said, Miss Annette, she said, listen, I want you to come sing at my church. Here's my cell phone number. If you ever need anything, you call me. We're so glad you guys are here in Texas. So October 2, I take my wife to the Labor and Delivery Center in Texas Health Harris Methodist Hospital in Cleburne. And they admit her, and they keep her for a couple of hours, and the physician on call comes up to me, and he says, hey, she's not ready to have a baby. These are Braxton Hicks contractions. We've been measuring them. We've been doing all the checks. She is nowhere near having a baby. I said, okay. He said, we've already talked to her, kind of filled her in on that, and I think you guys can go home. And we gave her a little something that's going to help calm these down a little bit so she can sleep. She's pretty exhausted. She's been up all night. But yeah, we'll probably see you next week. He says, I don't think she's going to have this baby until next week sometime. I said, okay, fair enough. And so we left the hospital. We went back to our bus. Friday, this is of course Friday. We go through the whole day. She's doing okay. Sabbath morning, early in the morning, I wake up and I said to her, hey, are you fine with me leaving to go preach? I was scheduled to preach and sing 3.5 hours away in East Texas, in Jefferson, Texas. You know Texas, you know the hill country. It's beautiful out there, pine trees, rolling hills. She said, yeah, go ahead and go. I mean, I couldn't take her with me. The physician basically said, no long car rides right now. She's that far along in her pregnancy. We don't want blood clots in her legs. No long car rides. So this 7-hour round trip wasn't going to happen. So she said, yeah, go ahead. I feel fine. I think we're good. I had a sermon concert program scheduled that morning at the Jefferson Church for the Academy students, and then that evening at another church, I had an evening concert. And so I left with a prayer. I get to the church, I set up my system, I'm sitting at the piano, I'm singing a song, and right in the middle of that song, my phone, which is sitting there on the piano, it dings at me, vibrates, flashes, whatever you want to call it. My wife and I always stay in touch via text message, even during concerts. If you see me texting anybody, it's me texting her. We just do that. We've always done that. And she texted me like she normally would. Instead of being a little kiss emoji, though, this time, it was, my water broke. Whoa. So I get up from the piano, and I just tell the congregation, I mean, there's a big church out there. It's an academy church. I said, guys, I'm sorry. I am so sorry. I have to leave. My wife is having a baby in Cleburne. She's alone. I got to get there. They gave me a standing ovation. I marched out of that church, got in my truck, and started driving. Around that time, she told me she had called Miss Annette and said, Miss Annette, I think I'm going to have a baby, and I need you to come get me and take me to the hospital because I had the only vehicle. So Miss Annette, who at that particular Sabbath was playing the organ, got up from the organ, ran out of the church. No one to this day, I think, really knows why. And she went and got my wife and took her to the hospital. Dropped her off, waited in the waiting room. My wife at that point is calling me. I'm in the truck driving like a madman. And she's pretty distraught. She's crying. She's saying, I can't do this without you. You're my rock. This is not how it was supposed to be. You got to get here. You know, all the things. It's killing me. Every time I just push that accelerator a little harder. I finally got this bright idea. I thought, I'm going to call Texas Highway Patrol and see if they can have an officer escort me. Let's get this done, right? It's Texas. So I get on the phone with them. It's called Department of Public Safety, DPS. This lady answers with a southern drawl, dispatch, what's your emergency? I said, well, this is not an emergency by your standards, but my wife is having a baby in Cleburne. I am here in Jefferson. She's alone. We're not from here. We're from Michigan. I need to get there. She's pretty distraught. She's been calling me on the phone. What can you guys do for me, please? So she puts me on hold, and she comes back a minute later, and she said, listen, any other day of the week, I could have sent a state trooper to escort you across all 3 county lines. But I can't today. She says, all my state troopers that are really the extra are working security for a football game. She said, so here's what I did. I put out a radio bulletin to all of our state troopers that are running the interstate, just a small group, through all the 3 counties you're going through. They have a description of your truck, they have your license plate, and they have your story. She said, so you're free to get there. Just do it safely, please. And I said, thank you. And I hung up, and I got there. I did it in about an hour and a half. I'll let you do the math on that. But I go ripping into this hospital, and I go right to the elevator. I punch in floor 7. I've done this before. It's not my first rodeo. I know how to get to labor and delivery. And the labor and delivery elevator doors on floor 7 open up into the waiting room. And so there's a whole group of people there that are waiting for babies to be born in the locked down part of labor and delivery. Those elevator doors open. I come marching through those doors, and I get my second standing ovation of the day. Because apparently word had gotten around to the waiting room people that some guy in a suit was trying to make it in time to see his baby be born in that very labor and delivery center. And so the nurses had said to the staff and to the people in the waiting room, the staff had said to them, keep an eye out for the guy in the suit. He's going to be rushing through. Let us know. We need to get him into his wife's room immediately. So there was my standing O, my second one. They take me back to Heather's room. Miraculously, my wife has not had the baby yet. I mean, absolutely miraculously. The charge nurse in charge at that time, she even had called me or texted me and said, listen, your wife's going to have this baby. She got on the phone, actually. She had said, your wife is going to have this baby in 20 minutes. That was almost 2 hours ago. She said, in 20 minutes, she's going to have this baby, so you're never going to make it in time. She's just going to have to do this. And I just, was killing me. It was eating me up, Anyway, I get there. She has held off because women have that much control over their bodies. It's amazing. And I was able to welcome my daughter into the world. I was able to be there for my wife as she went through this, what was a pretty traumatic experience, at least at that time. Emma had her umbilical cord wrapped around her neck. You hear about this all the time. It's actually more common than you realize. I didn't know that. So they had an emergency pediatrician there who was working things out, keeping on track of our baby's oxygen levels and making sure everything was okay, getting that cord taken care of. And they did. There was no complications whatsoever at all with Emma. But they have to monitor her, and they monitor her for 24 hours just to make sure everything was okay. So they're waking her up every 2 hours all night. And so what they do is they do this thing now. It's called skin to skin. They tell mom, listen, mom, while you recover and you sleep a little bit, after your baby's born, we're going to give baby to dad. And Dad, we're going to ask you to take off your shirt, and we just want you and your daughter to be skin to skin. Thought it was a little weird at first until I did it, and then I got it. So I had an opportunity after that adrenaline rush in dress pants and bare-chested. I'm holding on to my brand new baby girl, and it's like midnight. And they've shut the lights down. Heather has finally fallen asleep, trying to recover her energy. Emma has fallen asleep after her first feeding. And I am not asleep because I'm still coming off the adrenaline rush. And I'm looking at Emma, and all of the emotions, all the feels that you can imagine. But in addition to that, I'm having this moment where I'm looking at her, and I'm already wondering who she's going to be. Man, Emma, God formed you in the womb. He's got a plan and a purpose for you. What is it? I cannot wait to see. Whose life are you going to touch? Who's going to be in heaven someday because you have arrived on this earth? I don't know. God knows. God knows whose life she's going to interact hers with. He knows whose life Aubrey's going to interact hers with and intersect with, and who's going to be in heaven as a result of their influence. Only God knows. But as a parent who wants my kids to have a purpose in life, she's just hours old, and I'm already wondering who she's going to be someday. And I can't help but know and believe that God was thinking those same thoughts as he's forming us in the womb. He's looking at you going, I got a plan for you. You're going to be beautiful. You're going to do great things for me. Someday someone's going to be in heaven because of your influence, and I can't wait to let you be a part of this grand plan called salvation. I want to share with you a video because you're going to see people on the streets of Texas. This is a powerful series of interviews. A church there decided they wanted to get the spiritual pulse of their city. I think it's a good thing, right? Shouldn't we do that? Shouldn't we know what people's needs are? Jesus did. That was the first thing he did. When he'd meet people, he'd take care of whatever their temporal needs were, and then he would start giving them the forever stuff. What are the needs of our community? So this church in Texas said, hey, we're in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. It's a widely different demographic. It's mixed. It's Neapolitan. But what do our people need the most? It's true. You know, if my wife and I are out hiking, we were hiking out in government camp by Mount Hood not too long ago in the snow. It was awesome. And I were to sprain my ankle and twist it and go to the ground, I would hope she's not going to start doing CPR on me, right? Get the ace bandage out, wrap it up, let's move on. If somehow I was shot and I'm bleeding out of my chest, I'm hoping she's not getting an ace bandage to wrap it around my ankle, right? Because the basic thing of triage is you got to figure out what's wrong with somebody. You ask them a few questions, figure out what's wrong. We do it to our own kids. Where does it hurt, honey? Oh, it's my knee, Dad. Okay, let me look. We start figuring out what's wrong, and then we can treat it accordingly. And so this church wanted to do this. They said, we're going to figure out what's wrong in our community, what their needs are. Where does it hurt? And depending on what their answers are, we're going to start responding as a church. And so they asked people a series of questions. One of those questions was, what's your purpose in life? They wanted to see what people's answer would be in response to that question. As you watch this video, just pretend that someone came up to you and they said, hey, what is your purpose in life? Think about what your answer might be in response to that question.
What is your purpose in life?
I don't think I have one.
What is your purpose in life?
I haven't figured that out yet.
Have you ever thought about it before?
Nope.
You've never thought about it?
Nope. Not at all. I haven't spent any time on it.
You haven't spent any time thinking about what your purpose is in life?
Not recently. Should I be?
Well, you tell me. It's your life.
No, I haven't spent any time on that. I just go day to day. That's just it.
What is your purpose in life?
I really haven't put that much thought into it.
Why not?
I don't know. I'm just trying to have a good time.
What is my purpose in life?
You gotta give me time to think about
Okay,
that
think
one.
about it.
Get through it. Don't kill anybody.
Just keep doing until I get it over with.
Just be happy.
It's just to be happy.
I think that I should have fun and be happy.
To be happy and make my family happy and my boyfriend happy and just be happy.
I don't really feel that I'm here to do anything in particular. I mean, it's not like I think that I'm destined to do something or be someone or something like that. I'm just kind of going through the routines, you know, as society's laid it all out for us.
I feel like I have a purpose to help preserve, conserve the beauties of nature.
Hopefully leave some sort of legacy.
To contribute to the betterment of mankind.
Tell me what your purpose in life is.
Go to work, go home, live. You gotta, I got a purpose. Everybody got a purpose on earth, but I ain't found my purpose out yet.
To live a long life and to be prosperous.
What's my purpose in life? My purpose in life is to be successful.
To be successful and to lead a happy, fulfilling life.
To provide well for my family.
I want to be a really powerful woman, build my career built in financial area.
Do you think that you have a purpose?
Not necessarily. I think purpose is just to do what you want to do. Go out and live life and have fun.
Yeah, I think everybody has a purpose in life. And what would that purpose be for you? I'm not sure yet. What is your purpose in life?
My purpose in life is basically to live the best life I can and to help others and be there for my friends and my family.
How do you know that that's your purpose? Where does that come from?
It comes from within my heart and my head.
How do you know having fun is your purpose?
I don't know. I mean, that's just personal philosophy. Get it from what I think, that's it.
How do I know this is my purpose? What kind of question is that?
Boy, I think you got to start drinking before you talk about that, really.
What is your purpose in life?
My purpose in life, I am deeply rooted in the Christian faith, and my purpose would be to glorify God in all that I do.
Do you have a purpose in life?
No.
Have you ever thought about it before?
Guess I've thought about it a little, but it scares me, so I don't.
What do you mean it scares you?
I don't know, I just like to more concern myself with living day to day, having fun.
And that's it?
That's pretty much it.
I mean, yeah, more or less, we're just going through the motions here, and, you know, you do what you feel like doing. I don't think there's anything really pushing or pulling us in any direction. And, you know, it ends whenever your life ends.
It ends whenever your life ends. That's what a lot of people think. That's our mission field right there. Can you imagine how Jesus feels knowing what he did for every one of those people? Jesus' very sacrifice is the reason that you and I have a purpose. If it wasn't for that moment, when he breathed, "It is finished," we would have no purpose. Really, the evolutionary principle at that point would take over, survival of the fittest. But thankfully, the story ended quite differently. Jesus obtained victory for you and I, and now we have a story to tell. I'm going to sing a song that I've sung thousands of times, and I'm sure you've heard many times yourself. But as I sing this, I want it to be a reminder, just a brief revival in your heart of appreciation for what Jesus did for you and I. Because I think if we really appreciate what he did, we're going to share it with other people. We'll remind them they have a purpose too. I always get lost in this song. I can't help but get lost in it. I pray that you will too. Walking on the road to Jerusalem, the time had come to sacrifice again. My two small sons, they walked beside me on the road. The reason that they came was to watch the lamb. Yeah. Oh, Daddy, Daddy, what will we see there? There's so much that we don't understand, no. So I told them of Moses and Father Abraham. And then I said, dear children, watch the Lamb. For there will be so many in Jerusalem today. And we must be sure, the Lamb, that it doesn't run away. And then I told them of Moses and of Father Abraham. And then I said, dear children, watch the Lamb. When we reached the city, I knew something must be wrong. There were no joyful worshipers and no joyful worship songs. I stood there with my children in the midst of angry men. And then I heard the crowd cry out, crucify him. Oh, we tried to leave the city, but we could not get away. Forced to play in this drama a part I did not wish to play. Why upon this day were men condemned to die? And why were we standing here where soon they would pass by? I looked and said, even now they come. The first one cried for mercy. The people gave him none. Oh, the second one, he was violent and he was arrogant and loud. I still can hear his angry voice as he was screaming at the crowd. And someone said, there's Jesus. And I scarce believed my eyes. A man so badly beaten, that he barely looked alive. Blood poured down his body from the thorns upon his brow, running down the cross and falling to the ground. Oh, I watched him as he struggled, and I watched him as he fell. The cross came down upon his back, and the crowd began to yell. In that moment, I felt such agony. In that moment, I felt such loss. And then a Roman soldier grabbed my arm and screamed, carry his cross. At first I tried to resist him, then his hand reached for his sword. And so I knelt and took the cross from the Lord. I placed it on my shoulders, and I started down the street. The blood that he They led us to Golgotha. They drove nails deep in his feet and hands. And yet upon that cross, I heard him pray, Father, forgive them. Oh, never have I seen such love in any other eyes. Into thy hands I commit my spirit, he prayed. And then he died. I stood for what seemed like years and lost all sense of time. And then I felt two tiny hands. They were holding tight to mine. My children stood there weeping. I heard the oldest say, Father, please forgive us. The lamb ran away. Oh, Daddy, Daddy, what have we seen here? There's so much that we don't understand, no. So I took them in my arms, and we turned and faced the cross. And then I said, dear children, watch the Lamb. Jesus had a purpose. He was focused, he was determined to complete his purpose. He never let anyone distract him from his purpose. He was very driven. I've often wondered why Jesus didn't just come to the earth and say to humanity, I'm going to do something very extraordinary for you on your behalf. It's going to take every ounce of strength in my being to do it. It's going to take close communication and close communion with my Father in heaven, and I'm going to be kind of busy. So for the 3.5 years of my ministry, and maybe even before then, I just need some space and some time. I want to save you, but I got to focus. How many times have I said I'm busy? so busy. I don't have time to help somebody. That's not what Jesus did every step of the way to Calvary. He was reaching across humanity, relieving our suffering every step of the way. There's one tiny section of the Bible devoted to Jesus taking a moment in his humanity to feel the full weight of what was about to happen to him. And in that moment, his disciples were sleeping through it. The rest of the Gospels are full of Jesus just giving and giving and giving of himself. He sees a man with a withered hand and he says, he's my kid. That's my child. I didn't make him that way. And Jesus cannot help himself. He is the creator. He has to heal that man. Someone else is blind. Jesus, in his compassion, feels so bad. He's got a front row seat to sin and what it's done to his kids, and he heals them. He can't help himself. Jesus meets a woman who has no one to defend her. She has no friends. Her heart is sick, and Jesus heals it. And the two of them become the best of friends right to the very end. That's what Jesus did in his life, and I'd like to pattern my life after that. I want to close and wrap up here with these last two songs, if you'd be patient with me. I'm going to sing a song that's going to go along with a video I'm going to show, and then after this interview and the song that I'm going to sing along with the rest of the video, we're going to sing a closing song together. And I want that song, it's a song you've heard before. It was written in the 90s. It's an older song, but it's a good song, and I want us to sing it together as we close. But you're going to see in this video that sometimes God asks us to do hard things. You know, when the plan of salvation, when that was brought up in the heavenly courts, you know that the conversation between Jesus and his Father was pretty incredibly emotionally intense. Jesus saying, I want to do this, and God saying, I love them too, let's do this. I mean, I can't imagine giving up my kid for someone else. I can't fathom it. My best friend, Matt, he has a daughter that's the same age as our youngest daughter. Kids were born. My wife's best friend is his wife. It's kind of cool because they did their pregnancy together. Kids born 10 days apart. His daughter, Elisa, beautiful little girl. I mean, what if Matt came up to me and said, hey, Scott, listen, Elisa needs a heart transplant. She's going to die. She's got months left. And you know what? Your daughter is a match. For whatever reason, genetically, she's a match. Her body won't reject this heart. She's going to have these special drugs for the rest of her life, but she could live. Would you consider saving my daughter? As much as it would break my heart. As much as I love him, he is my best friend, and we are tighter than brothers. You and I both know there's no way I would agree to that. That's what God did. He did it knowing that there were people who were going to be interviewed saying, I have no purpose in life. I'm just living day to day. I couldn't care less what your Jesus supposedly did for me. And they did that anyway. He made the sacrifice of letting his son die for you and I. Sometimes God says, I want you to do something hard for me. And we don't sit there and say, God, I can't do this. This is a little too hard. Because if anybody knows hard, it's God and it's his son, Jesus. Sometimes he asks you to do things that are outside of your comfort zone. You go, God, I'm just not comfortable going to someone's door and talking to them about Jesus. I'm not comfortable going and doing mission work overseas. It's just not my jam. Instead, we say, God, okay, here I am. Send me. You're going to figure out the rest. Moses went through this. God asked him, hey, listen, people of Israel, you're the guy. Moses is going, do you not remember my history? I'm kind of good with the sheep. 40 years has treated me well. I have a family now. I'm past drafting age. And God is saying, no, you need to do this. And Moses is just, God, I can't. I don't even speak good anymore. I don't even hardly know the language. And God's saying, Moses, with me behind you, there's nothing you can't do. Jonah, hey. Jonah's going, there's no way. That didn't end well. Sometimes God asks you to do hard things, and you're going to see that here in this video. This father and this son, this parent-child relationship I've been talking about, you're going to see them doing hard things to inspire you and I that we can do anything that we put our minds to if God is behind us. It's awesome. But sometimes God asks us to do little things that we think are insignificant, and I think we're in a danger of missing those little ways that we can give back to Jesus for what he's done for us. And I'm going to give you one example, and it's my own personal family's example of how something that was relatively insignificant became something so significant. And it shows us that you and I have a purpose. Let's talk, instead of talking about purpose like it's some abstract thing, let's talk about what it really looks like when the rubber meets the road. 1983, Allentown, Pennsylvania. My mom was the black sheep of her family. My family's from India on her side of the family. They're all from the province of Bihar. It's up in northern India. If you study Indian history, you'll know that it was a British colony at one time. Indians for a period of time were slaves, and then they were kind of had this route. I like to call it the route to the promised land, where they were British nationals in India, and then they would go to Guyana, British Guyana. Guyana was controlled by the British, the Dutch, and the French at one time, and the British colony in Guyana would bring Indians to the cane fields. And the Indians could work as indentured servants in the cane fields, and eventually they could go to London. London was the promised land. That was like the America for them. We could build and have a better life in London. So Indians would go en masse from India, and they'd go down to Guyana, and they'd work for a while in Guyana, and they'd come to London. That's what my family did, and they all eventually ended up in London. My mom was the first person to leave London and come to the United States. She was in her 20s, came to New York City to build a new life. She didn't just leave the family, though. She left the family religion. My family's they're all Muslim. She left Islam. She said, I want nothing to do with this God. If he's as exacting and as mean as he's portrayed to be, I'll never be able to please him, and I have no desire to. So she walks away from Islam. She comes to the United States, walks away from the family. You know how it is in the culture. She begins to live the life that really had no spiritual guidance whatsoever, and I can tell you that doesn't take you down a really healthy road. She meets my dad. They eventually get married. They have me. They move from New York City to Allentown, Pennsylvania, where they're struggling financially in a major way. My family's very poor, living in an apartment that doesn't even have laundry services, so my mom would go to a laundromat and do laundry. My dad was an alarm salesman. He would sell alarm systems to people for their houses. One day my mom was in the laundromat, and she's sitting there waiting for the laundry. She had her routine, put the wash in, start it, go to the magazine rack, get a Time magazine, People magazine, whatever's there, and flip through it while the laundry's going. But on this particular day, there were no magazines in the magazine rack. It was empty. We're not sure if the custodian decided to clear the rack in preparation for all the new material, but for whatever reason that day, the magazine rack was empty, and all that was there was a spiritual book, a religious book, entitled, I don't know, Bible Study Helps, something like that. And out of sheer boredom, my mom picked it up, and she began to read it. And the clothes are washing, and the clothes are drying, and she is pouring through this book. As she's reading, she's weirded out by what she's reading because it's stuff she's never heard before. She begins to read about the Sabbath. Wow. I mean, as Muslims, we kind of have Friday as a holy-ish day, and I know there's a lot of people that go to church on Sunday. I've never heard of this whole Saturday thing. This is bizarre. Really? And she's reading it, and then she starts reading about what happens when we die. You know, in Islam, you know, my grandmother just passed away last year during the pandemic, and you know, they have 40 days of prayer for a Muslim. You know, you bury the body within 24 hours. Every time we have a funeral, if I get a phone call that someone died, I have to literally stop what I'm doing, book a flight, and fly in. I mean, literally. Heather knows. She's done it many times with me. We were driving in Michigan on our way up north. It was 10 o'clock at night. I found out my cousin Shamiza. She was 39. She had a heart valve issue we didn't know about. She stroked out in the hospital. Healthy. Was healthy. My brother called me and said Shamiza had died. I was totally in shock. We were on our way to this concert. We had our car packed and everything ready to go. We literally turned the car around and started driving to New York City. Got to get there. And then they start praying for the body, because for the next 40 days, how many people around the world are praying for you is really what's going to determine what level of heaven you end up in. So she's reading about how when you die, and you're resting quietly in peace until Jesus comes and says, come forth. This is totally foreign to her. So she takes the book home, and she says to my dad, listen, I grew up a Muslim. I know nothing about Christianity. But the stuff in this book is way out there. you got to read this. Tell me if any of this could possibly be true. And so my dad began to read it, and he's agnostic. He has no interest in religion. In his heart, he said, I always thought there was a God somewhere out there. I honestly didn't think he really cared about me. He was just running things. And so he begins to read through this book, and he tells my mom, I've never heard of any of this stuff before. But one of the things they notice is throughout this book, there were these Bible passages, these Bible verses, these references. And one of the things they thought is, you know what? If this stuff is real, it'll be in the Bible. If it's not, we're going to call their bluff. Even in their spiritual depravity, my parents knew that the Bible had authority. God has used the Holy Spirit to maintain the credibility of the Bible throughout the ages. It's why it's such a special book. In Sabbath school this morning, we were talking about how one of these Bible classes, they used the Bible, right, as the textbook. She was talking about how she had never gone to a Bible class where the textbook was just the Bible. Sola Scriptura, right? And so my parents decided to go out to a Christian bookstore. They bought a Bible. They took it home, and they began to study it. Do you remember what it was like to study the Bible for the first time? Is anybody newly studying the Bible right now that wants to admit it? I mean, really, okay, so if you are, praise the Lord. Okay, so when you study the Bible for the first time, and I'll remind you in case you've forgotten, you don't know that Genesis is at the beginning. Do you know that Genesis is right at the beginning of the Bible? She knows that. She's been studying for a little while, okay. You know that Revelation is at the end. And Psalms and Proverbs is where? In the middle. They didn't know that. In fact, my mom had a Quran sitting in we still have a Quran laying around the house somewhere, but didn't own a Bible. And so she didn't know. So if the Bible passage said Revelation chapter 10, verse 17, she didn't know to flip to the end and find it. So what they did is they went to the index at the beginning of the Bible. They found Revelation. They found that the page number was 1007. And they used the page numbers in the Bible to find page 1007. When's the last time you used page numbers to find a Bible verse? You don't. And once they got to Revelation, they saw those big letters, Revelation. Yes, we're there. Now we got to find the big number, and it's going to be a 10. So they're looking through the big numbers. Big numbers. Big numbers. Finally, they find the little number, 17. There it is. It is a slow and arduous process to study the Bible for the first time if you've never done it before. But they were so hungry for truth. They were trying so hard to call the bluff of this book that they did it. And they did it faithfully. There was not a Bible worker in their house showing them the way. There was not an evangelistic series that they were attending at that time. There weren't pastors visiting their home on a weekly basis. It was my mother and my father, a Bible, and the Holy Spirit. And the more they read, the more they were convicted. The more they were convicted, the more it changed the way they were living their daily life. And this is a reminder. This is a reminder for us. I'm guilty of this. Sometimes as we do evangelism, as we interact with people out in the world, we think we can convince them of the truth. If I just hammer it out, your intelligence is going to see this, and your intellect is going to convince you that this is the way. So walk ye in it. But this is a reminder that it's not how it works. We present information just like the Bible did in my parents' home. And then the Holy Spirit does the work of convicting the heart. And so if you see somebody near you in a different place on their journey, don't try to convince them. Don't try to convict them, because you can't. Just say, hey, I've got some information. Check this out. This is what helped me in my journey. People will find their own way in their time that Jesus allots them to find it. Because my parents now, at this point, are convicted on the Sabbath 100%. Convicted on the state of the dead. So there they are, trying to go to Sunday churches and tell these pastors that we should be having church on Saturday. They were doing it. I just talked to my dad. I had a 3-hour conversation with him the other day. He lives in Tucson. I said, hey, Dad, I'm telling your testimony, and I want to get the details right. What was this? How did this Sabbath thing work? He's like, well, we would go to these Sunday churches, and we'd talk to the pastors, and they would say, listen, church is on Sunday. And we'd say, can you please show us in the Bible, because we have not found it yet. Just show us, because we're still trying to figure this all out. And they were honestly wondering. And these pastors are going, well, I can't really do that because it's not there. Well, then why are we doing this? It's just what we're doing. And it wasn't satisfactory, so my dad said, we went to several Sunday churches before we gave up after about a month. And we thought we were the only people worshiping on Sabbath. And so we started doing it in our own home. I said, Dad, what did Sabbath look like? Seriously? A former Muslim and a former agnostic having Sabbath. Seriously, do tell. He said, well, we would read scripture. I mean, that was one thing we'd do on the Sabbath. He says, I wouldn't take any alarm contracts. Friday night to Saturday night, I knew I wasn't supposed to work, so I wouldn't take contracts. I said, did you guys have like well, you didn't have haystacks. Did you guys have any special meal? You know, what did you guys eat? He's like, well, Mom would make steak. It was really the most special thing. It was something we only did on special occasions, so she would make steak. They didn't know about the health message. That was special. And I said, what did you sing hymns? Did you have music? Because that to me seems like it's a part of church. He's like, we didn't know hymns. We didn't have a hymn book. We just played Sandy Patty cassette tapes over and over. My parents' first Sabbaths in their home were the 3 S's: steak, scripture, and Sandy Patty. And you know what? God looked down at them and he smiled. As they ate their steak and listened to Sandy Patty, his heart was warm because he's looking at them going, you have lived up to the light I've given you. Every drop of light I have shined into this home has been embraced. Over time, God, he takes care of the other stuff. He says, hey, I want you to live long. I want your mind to be clear. I want you to be healthy. I want you to feel good. I want you to be vibrant. Here's how. And he teaches us all of this other stuff. So my parents were doing this for several months. My dad said probably 2 or 3 months we were keeping the Sabbath in our own home this way. And then we got an invitation in the mail to an evangelistic series, and now you know why I'm so passionate about evangelistic series. We got this invitation in the mail, and he says, and it just sat on our kitchen counter for a week, and Mom and I were talking about whether we should go. Weren't really sure, but it was on Revelation and Daniel, and those books were kind of strange, and we thought maybe we could learn something. So we decided we're going to go. We're going to sit in the back, he said, because if it feels too culty, we'll leave. And so they sat in the back, and they listened as the pastor just outlined the love of Jesus that first night. And they were like, this is cool. Let's go back the next night. And they came back the next night, and the next night, and the next night, 28-night series. Slowly, they were moving forward in the chairs. This was in a gymnasium. They were holding these meetings. They're moving forward row by row every night. And they finally were sitting in the front. My dad said, we sat in the front because we had all these questions we were writing down. And we wanted to catch that pastor before he left to just pepper him with questions. We would machine gun that poor guy with questions. I mean, he would, like, no sooner closing prayer, boom, we were right in his face. And at the end of that 28-night series, my parents were baptized into the Adventist movement, never to leave, ever. To this day, active members of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, a Muslim and an agnostic. I have had an opportunity most of my life, my brother and I, both of us, to grow up in the Adventist church and grow up in a Christian environment. It has shaped every part of who I am. It's why I'm singing and doing music ministry full time. My wife and I interact with 22,000 people. We keep track of it. We have a spreadsheet, 22,000 people a year, face to face, not including what we experience on television and who we contact through media. Face to face, 22,000 people a year are able to hear God's heart through music. I'm raising my kids in the church, and who knows whose life they're going to touch generations from now. And it all began because someone left a tract behind, a book behind, in a laundromat in 1983 in Allentown, Pennsylvania. So when people come up to me and they say, I don't have a purpose, I can't sing, I can't preach, I'm really bad about going door to door, I have no idea what God wants me to do with my life, I wish I would just figure it out. I look at you straight in the eye and I say to you, can you leave a book behind in a laundromat? If you tell me yes, I'm going to say that that's your purpose today. So you know what I do is I keep glow tracks. You guys know what glow tracks are. Keep them in my truck. In Oregon, of course, we can't pump our own gas, so I can't do this quite as much there. But in most other states, what I'll do is when I'm done filling up at the pump, I'll stick a glow tract in the credit card swiper. So the next guy has to get it out before he wants to pump gas. Because the next guy could be me. It could be this story all over again. So what is your purpose in life? It might be a tract left behind somewhere. It might be a hug for a neighbor. It might be a prayer for your coworker that you know is going through stuff. Just come up to them and say, please, I know that maybe you're going through stuff. And the one thing I can do for you is pray to you. I can lift you up to Jesus in prayer. It's the only thing I know how to do. Please let me. It could be a phone call to a family member you should be calling today. God may be calling you in your heart, especially you young people. He may be calling you to do mission work overseas. You saw the people on the screen when I was showing the It Is Written video, Eyes for India. People in India, 30 years old, getting cataracts because of their lack of diet, lack of clean water, getting cataracts, going blind by the time they're 40. God may call you to go out there and help relieve the suffering of these people. If God calls you to do something hard or to do something relatively not hard, that is your purpose in life, because with him behind you, there's just nothing you can't do for him.
January 10th, 1962. We knew there was something wrong, but we did not know exactly what. The doctor said, forget Rick. Put him away, put him in an institution. He's going to be nothing but a vegetable for the rest of his life. We cried a little bit. We talked, and we said, no, we're not going to put Rick away. We're going to bring Rick home and bring him up like any other child. We knew Rick was smart. We could tell by looking in his eyes. And when we talked to him, he was paying attention to what we were saying. So we wanted to get a computer built so Rick could communicate with us. Everybody came to our house that night for Rick to say his first words. And everybody was betting, what is the first words Rick is ever going to say? His mom saying, it's going to be, hi, Mom. And me, the dad, saying, no, it's going to be, hi, Dad. Well, the Boston Bruins were going for the Stanley Cup, and the very first words Rick ever said was, go Bruins.
Dick is a military man, so he knows a thing or two about commitment. This time, he's just months removed from a heart attack. This gift that he gives to his son, or is it the other way around? Either way, it all started when Rick heard about a charity run for a paralyzed athlete. He asked Dad, and Dad said yes.
Gun went off, and we went off with all the other runners, and everybody thought that Rick and I would just go to the corner and turn around and come back. Well, we didn't. We finished the whole 5 miles, coming in next to last, but not last. And when we got home that night, Rick wrote on his computer, Dad, when I'm running, it feels like my disability disappears. So that was a very powerful message to me, that we finally found a sport that Rick could get involved in just like everybody else. Rick is my motivator. He inspires me. To me, he's the one out there competing, and I'm just loaning him my arms and my legs so that he can compete. There's just something that gets into me when I'm out there competing with Rick that I can't explain it, and we're able to go faster. And it's just an unbelievable feeling. Rick and I love the Ironman triathlon, to be out there competing with the best triathletes in the world, to be accepted to compete along with these triathletes. Just to be out there on that pier with all the other triathletes and then waiting in the water for that cannon to go off, it was just so exciting. The feeling coming down the finish line in Leahy Drive, it's just an awesome experience. With the crowd there, all the excitement, the noise, and the announcers announcing, all your adrenaline just gets flowing.
I may be disabled, but I live a very fulfilling life. And if someone takes the time to get to know me, they will realize that I am no different than anyone else.
Here he is. He graduated from public high school. He's graduated from college. He's out there competing in road races and triathlons. He lives a happier life probably than 95% of the population. Rick would tell you that, if if he was physically able to do something, that he'd probably play basketball or football or hockey. But then he always says, no, the first thing he'd do is sit down, have me sit down in his wheelchair and he'd push me. You know, it really makes me feel good that you know, he appreciates, you know, what I'm trying to do to help him out, and he'd do the same thing for me. Our message is, yes, you can. You can do anything you want to do as long as you make up your mind. You can do it.
If you have ever searched for the meaning of life, stop. The answer lies right here.
When I am down and oh my soul so weary, when troubles come and my heart burden be, and I am still and wait here in the silence until you come and sit a while with me. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas, and I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. There is no life without its hunger. Each restless heart beats so imperfectly, but I look up and I am filled with wonder. Sometimes I think I glimpse eternity, 'cause you raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on the stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be, 'cause you raise me up so I can stand on mountains. And you raise me up to walk on stormy seas. And I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. And I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up to more than I can be. close with this last song. This is our challenge. This is our charge. I hope this song is just stuck in your head all week. You need to find a dark place and just shine the light of Jesus somehow. That's our job. It's our purpose as Seventh-day Adventist Christians. Go find those dark places and bring a little light. I love how this song doesn't say we should amble or shuffle or walk. It says, time is short. We run to the darkness. In between every verse, I'm going to ask you to join me. I'll sing the verses. There's 3 of them. But then every time we get to the chorus on your screen, join me as we close with this song. I want to leave you with Exodus 9:16. It's God telling Moses to tell Pharaoh, Pharaoh, I have raised you up for this very purpose, that I might show you my power, and that my name may be declared in all the earth. If God could use Pharaoh, who never had a willing heart, how much more could he use you and I if we just say, God, here I am, send me. There is a candle in every soul, some brightly burning, but some dark and cold. There is a Spirit who brings the fire. He ignites the candle and makes his home. Sing with me. Carry your candle and run to the darkness. Seek out the helpless, the confused and torn, and hold out your candle for all to see it. Take your candle and go light your world. Take your candle and go light your world. Frustrated brother, see how he's tried to light his own candle some other way. And see now your sister, she's been robbed and lied to. She still holds her candle without a flame. So carry your candle, run to the darkness, seek out the helpless, the confused and torn, and hold out your candle for all to see it. Take your candle, go light your world. Take your candle, go light your world. Now we are a family, our hearts are blazing, so let's raise our candles and light up the sky, praying to our Father in the name of Jesus. Make us a beacon, in the darkest night. Carry your candle and run to the darkness. Seek out the helpless, confused and torn, and hold out your candle for all to see. Take your candle, Go light your world. Take your candle. Go light your